Welcome to the post-winter meetings edition of Sharing Sox. I'm Southside Sox duty geezer Leigh Allan. With me, my son and West Coast correspondent Will, who is gearing up for playoff ball tonight. Unfortunately, it is his Thursday night softball league and not the White Sox that are making
Hey,
it playoffs.
playoff baseball is playoff baseball, even when it's adult men's
Softball.
recreation softball. We have far much more going for us right now than the Chicago White Sox do, despite how we made no moves in free agency really as well.
Well, yes. On the bright side, I looked through it with one exception. The entire pathetic American League Central basically did nothing. The
That
Twins are
is
still
true.
going backwards. Carlos Correa is still out there. They are still interested in bringing him back, and that would be bad for the White Sox if they succeed. But it's looking now, given where the two shortstops who have already gone have gone, with Turner and Bogarts, that there's going to be some big money teams going after Correa, probably in the 300 million range.
Without a doubt. I think Correa is definitely going to be a $300 million man. I do know he is not going to come to the Los Angeles Dodgers. They have declared that they are not going to pursue him because they're still mad at him for the sign stealing scandal that the Dodgers fell victim to. So I don't know where the 300 million is going to come from. He could end up in San Francisco. And then Dansby Swanson, being the other one who's still on the boards, will command, I think, a bit less than 300 million.
Yeah, 200 something.
But he is going to get more than he's worth. The shortstop contracts are so bloated this year. This is a good year to be a shortstop.
Well, speaking of being a shortstop, getting to the White Sox is strange. I mean, strange things. I mean, the White Sox have done what? They've picked up some guy named Nate Fisher on a minor league contract. The only thing they've got full really is the relief corps, the grossly overpaid relief corps, most expensive relief corps in history. And yet they go to two. They did the Rule 5 draft on Wednesday. We were recording this on Thursday, right after the meetings. The Rule 5 draft, they go for another relief pitcher. Guy who had a really good 2022 after a really miserable 2021, but it's still down in the kind of high A, double A range. Although they have to put him on the 26 man or he's bye bye.
Yep. I actually didn't hate that draft pick. He does actually have some decent upside, and I think he could play Major League Baseball in
Well, and
2023.
presumably Ethan Katz is very familiar with him from his time at San Francisco and dealing with San Francisco minor leaguers as well. So there could be a reason for that, and there'll be injuries. But there are 8 guys in the 26 man right now, and a ninth one due in June or July when Garrett Crochet comes off the IL. So that's the one place where they don't have gaping holes on the whole
No,
team.
no, and
So that's the one they're going to
unless
fill up.
unless they're gonna seriously consider dealing Liam Hendriks, which I think is quite possible at this point.
Now that's what we were talking about the shortstop thing, and then Hendricks and they go together because lots of the White Sox are listening on Liam Hendriks. They're not shopping him, but they're listening. Okay, if anybody wants a reliever from the White Sox, that's the one they want. Although I would think Kendall Graveman would be a possibility as well. And some of the lesser money teams would love to have Reynaldo Lopez because
Sure.
there's still team control there. But those are the only three that.
And he can eat innings. You know, teams that
Yeah, yeah,
teams that
yeah.
aren't trying to
He
win,
can
but
be a middle reliever as well as a 1 inning or late inning guy. But at the
100%.
same time, they're going. Hendrick's name is floating out there. It's well, yeah, that's there. It's a possibility. Yeah, it's possible. Yeah, and really, we got so little that anybody would trade for on the whole team or the whole farm system. Yes, they'd be very happy to take Colson Montgomery off our hands, but basically, No, if anybody we have to trade, a Luis Robert, for example, just leaves a bigger hole than whatever it would have filled up with the trade anyway. So, but the other thing that's out there is White Sox say they're not trading Tim Anderson. Well, there are 500 guys in the major leagues who are not being traded by their
Yeah.
team. Why is it a thing? And it's been more than one place that I've seen it. It's not like one crazy Bob Nightingale or something. There's several
No,
places going, no, White Sox are saying they're not trading Tim Anderson. Well, what would make anybody think they were unless they floated something out there somehow?
it made it onto MLB trade rumors, which I I don't know how you can rumor something that no one was ever going to do to begin with, and no one was interested in, and no one's been considering. It is like the White Sox just wanted to have a post, like in Hollywood, if you desperately want your deadline article, so you find like the dumbest thing and get your publicist to give you your deadline article. This felt like that, but for baseball. No one's talking about the White Sox because the White Sox aren't doing anything. So let's just put it out there that we're not trading the guy that we all knew we weren't trading,
Yeah.
who's on still a team friendly deal and we have control of and an option for after next year. It was so bizarre. It legitimately felt like Rick Hahn was sitting at home being like, no one's saying my name. So I'm going to float this out there. We're not trading Tim Anderson.
Well, now, in fairness, White Sox fans are saying his name, but perhaps not in a positive manner.
Yeah, but not in a way that MLB trade rumors can print. Yeah, it's you can put it on Twitter, but you can't put it on MLB trade rumors. Yeah, I don't know what the heck that whole thing has been about. You might as well release an article today that says we're not trading Dylan Cease, and another one the next day that says we're not trading Luis Robert, and one the next day we're not trading. I'm at a loss.
Those are the only three, actually.
Well, clearly the other guys aren't getting traded either, so
because nobody will take him. But that's it.
Exactly.
The White Sox don't want to reject that theory.
In terms of the AL Central, we saw one signing, really, Josh Bell going to Cleveland.
And that's a big deal.
That is a big deal. That's a good signing. I know that Bell is streaky, can be very streaky, but when he's good, he's very good. And that was kind of a hole for them in a lot of ways. And
well, ever
they
since
are a
Franmil
better team
Reyes
now.
just kind of capsized, they've had a big hole at DH, and then Naylor's not the greatest glove at first base either. So they've got he should be on the White Sox. He's a first baseman / DH.
I was honestly shocked we didn't sign him. I was expecting him to go to the White Sox for something like half a year, 35 mil, something like that. Just one of the worst contracts you can dream of, to go with our Clevenger deal, which was announced at $8 million. I don't think we've even talked about this on here. Clevenger announced at $8 million, and then a few hours later announced at $12 million. One of those seemed like an okay deal. One of those did not. And you won't believe which one.
It's Clevenger's. I just don't like Clevenger. And I know he was a very, very good pitcher. But a guy who is such a jerk that he not only violates COVID protocol for his team, COVID rules for his team, and he does it. At least Plesac, who's also a jerk, was visiting family. Clevenger was just along for the ride. Then he lies about it. He goes on the team plane. He's got a teammate recovering from cancer.
Yeah.
Goes on the team plane, in the locker room, the whole bit. And then he's apparently very, very angry that they got rid of him. How dare they? But the teammates were saying, either because this was 2020 where they could just say we quit and say he goes or we go. And then get into the baseball part. Second, Tommy Johns do not have the success rate of first Tommy Johns. You can be successful. There's some Jameson Taillon, Drew Rasmussen. although they're relievers. They don't have to pitch as much at one time. And they're both down maybe 3, 4 ticks on their fastballs. Rasmussen used to be a 100-mile-an-hour guy. Now he's a mid-90s guy, but he's done the old maturing and learning new pitches thing. But that's not common. It's like 63% ever make it back to the majors. Fewer percentage of that ever make it back to what they were. And for one Tommy John, that's 90% and over 80%, depending on who's measuring on how you got back to what you were. There are different ways to measure that, of course. So, I mean, it's strange.
It is the exact deal that I expected the White Sox to make. It is just so on brand for Rick Hahn, who might be the worst GM in all of baseball right now at this point in time. He might be the worst GM in all of baseball. And the fact that we would go out and get a guy who was good in 4 years ago, 5 years ago. There were a lot of guys who were good in 2017 who aren't good in 2023. You know, that's just kind of how it works. But it's so White Sox. It's so unbelievably White Sox to go out and get a guy who you remember was really good against you guys 5 years ago. Give him $12 million, which he's absolutely not worth. If he stays healthy, which he almost never does, you're talking about a guy who's already lost 2 miles an hour off his fastball in a league where having a fastball that is not really, really fast is borderline useless unless you're a great pitcher when it comes to mixing it up. He's good. He's got some good stuff, but his fastball is probably going to be in the 93 range. That's batting practice these days for Major League Baseball, unless it's moving really well.
And if I recall, his slider speed is way down too.
Slider is very slow, a very slow slider. I see this as being a guy who starts as our 5th starter until he gets hurt. Probably has an ERA around the 5.5 mark. He's not going to benefit from 19 games against the Tigers this season. They're only going to play 13, so you're not going to get to pad your stats with the AL Central matchups quite as much as you used to be able to. I think this guy's an ERA at 5. If he stays healthy, he's an okay 5th starter. I would have taken Johnny Cueto ahead of him just because now what we've done is we've got a team that is clearly famous. I would say league famous at this point for being dysfunctional in the clubhouse. So many guys are even saying, I won't come play for the White Sox because of the horror stories of the dysfunction. Now we're going to bring in a guy who's classically known for clubhouse dysfunction. It doesn't seem like a smart move. I don't know for sure. Maybe Clevenger had like an awakening in SoCal. Maybe he was out catching some waves one day and the sea gods spoke to him and said, you need to be a better dude. And now he will be that, and he'll be the thing that gels the White Sox clubhouse. It's not going to happen, but maybe it will.
Well, I thought that maybe he and Cease and Graveman could all get together and show each other the place on their arms where they didn't get a shot.
Yeah, right. It's right under their MAGA tattoos for all of them.
Yeah.
That signing was just absolute classic White Sox garbage nonsense. I have not spoken to a single person who's excited or interested in that signing. I basically think we downgraded a 5th starter, which is not what you want to do in free agency, especially for $12 million. Not that $12 million is that much money for a 1-year starter these days, but it's a lot of money for a 2 Tommy John guy who hasn't really been all that good for 5 years.
And it has been 4 since the second Tommy John.
Absolutely.
The other thing with the second
ridiculous.
Tommy John is they don't last long. I mean, they may pitch okay after the second Tommy John for a while. I think the average was 51 innings. That they last pretty well. Well, he's already done that. He did that in San Diego. So, I mean, they're really tempting fate. But I guess it beats spending serious money, which is what they otherwise would have to do. I'm guessing Cueto didn't want to come back.
It's
I've
quite
heard
possible,
Hans
but
mention something like he would have wanted to come back. I'm not sure I believe that. Cueto said things akin to the things that the other experienced pitchers said about the White Sox. That Hendricks said, and I'm guessing that's why Hendricks' name has floated around the way it has. Is he's pretty disgusted, or was last year with the team, and now we don't have any outfielders at all. We have one outfielder
which
on the
we'll talk
26-man
about.
roster. We have
We'll talk
one.
about in the second half. But let's stay on these pitchers for now. I think you're right. I mean, this front office is so pathetic in terms of the thickness of their skin that they cannot handle critique of the team by their own players. And if you can't handle that, you can't get better. I'm sorry. These are grown men. If they're not allowed to critique their team, which is notoriously dysfunctional. This is not, oh, Liam Hendricks is the one guy who has a problem with how things are being run.
Well, it's not
No,
just the team; it's the whole organization.
it's the whole organization. Everybody. And as I said, I think on our last podcast, 2 weeks ago before we took our week off for the holidays, I hope that this is something that Pedro Grifol can come in and change this culture. I do think he is going to be the kind of guy who can change a clubhouse culture. However, has it gone so far down into the gutter that Pedro Grifol is coming into just a horrendous situation? I think that's possible. And I don't know what they're going to do. We've said this a million times on this podcast. I know we have to fire the guys at the top. Nothing will change. We got rid of La Russa. That was step number 1. Step 2, Hahn. Step 3, Williams. Reinsdorf, obviously, we're stuck with him until he dies. But we have to clean house, and we're not going to. Things don't change.
Not going to happen.
When
not going to happen.
When you are not willing to be active about changing the culture of your organization, your culture stays the same. These are not young guys who, will learn and change. These are older guys who are stubborn and egotistical and conceited and don't give a crap about winning baseball games. That's where we're at. That's where the Chicago White Sox are at. I don't know if I hope I'm completely wrong about all that. Let's take our break. Let's come back. Let's talk
one quick
about
thing
outfield.
before the break.
Yeah.
I want to remember to get in here because I teed it up. Oh, where
This is a really good hold. This is good for radio.
Oh yeah, the headline from the Sun-Times: when will the Cubs and White Sox act like major market teams? How about never?
Except the Cubs have already made more deals.
The Cubs are out there, and they're supposed to be in on Swanson.
I think, and I hate that I'm saying this. As of right now, with what the rosters are, I think the Cubs will win more games than the White Sox. And if that happens, we should just get rid of the White Sox. We should just get rid of them. We should just cancel them, just be done with them, because this is our championship window. And you're telling me the Cubs, who essentially gave up on the sport of baseball a couple years ago, are now going to sneak in ahead of us? I mean, I'm not saying they've signed marquee guys, but they have signed potentially good players in an effort to win baseball games. That's something we're not doing. Let's take our break and come back and talk about how we have an outfield with one player who will be standing alone, which honestly might be better than having 3 guys out there, considering the guys we might have to put out there. But it is dire in that outfield. We'll talk about that when we come back in just a second on Sharing Sox. Welcome back to Sharing Sox. First half, we talked a little general free agency and then pitcher woes, pros and woes. Didn't come up with any pros, but we found plenty of woes.
I mean, the starting pitching, if Giolito rebounds, it should be fine.
Sure, big if, but you're right.
Yeah.
You're right. Let's talk about this outfield.
Well, if we look at what's missing, because you got 13 pitchers and 13 position players these days. On the position side, team that did not produce runs well. let go without much of any fight that we could see their very best run producer of not just this season, but the last 9 seasons. Just let them go, not trying to keep a team with horrible defense. Let go their best defender by D War in Josh Harrison. A team with no outfielders. One outfielder they had let go. They didn't have a choice on Pollock, but they let Engel go. And yes, Engel had a terrible season, and it was understandable. But you may have wanted to keep him around just so somebody could play the outfield if need be.
Yeah, we don't have a guy you can throw out there to play defense late in a game. We don't have anyone who can catch the ball. And Luis Roberts even a question mark on if he's going to come out and catch the ball next season. It is crazy how bad our outfield will be. Now, granted, if Luis Robert plays to his potential, he is an elite outfielder. We could have an absolutely elite center fielder. However, there's actually a lot of room over on the left side, and there's a lot of room over on the right side where you're supposed to put guys. And we don't really have guys we can put there right now.
Because the theory is Andrew Vaughn
it,
will move to first base.
Which
and
is
that's another thing with letting
Jose,
with just kind of waving goodbye to Jose. This was supposed to be the window. It made sense. If you're looking, well, we want to be really good in 2025 and 26, it made sense to let Jose go and bring Vaughn in and get him working. Absolute sense. But if you're saying this is our window, this is our time, that's what they're saying, then how do you let go your best hitter and replace him with a guy who really struggled in the second half of his 2 major league seasons? Really struggled. And is also defensively pretty poor. I mean, maybe adequate at first because statues can be adequate at first. But so Vaughn has moved out of one corner. Eloy, they want to move to DH, which makes a great deal of sense. So that's the other corner. You've got Gavin Sheets out there who managed, I think, minus 13 defensive runs saved while only playing 4 games, whatever it was. Oscar Colas coming back, he has 31 at bats in AAA. He's a good prospect. He's a very good prospect. He's probably going to be a very good outfielder. And that creates something of a problem in looking for a really good right fielder, because if you have a guy coming up, you want to be your right fielder for at least 2024 and probably the latter part of 2023. Then who do you go get?
I feel like you and I aren't asking for a really good right fielder. I feel like we're asking for a guy who can catch a routine fly ball. I'm not expecting us to get anyone spectacular, but we're just simply asking to get a guy in the outfield who's played outfield before. I don't think it's a big ask as a fan base to say, hey, we would love some guys who've caught a fly ball before to play out there. It's what we ask of our softball team, and we are, as we mentioned before, a playoff team. It is, yes, Colas, great prospect. He's our
plus also great nickname wise. It's got to be Pepsi Colas. Got to be.
I mean, I don't know if it's got to be.
I mean, I'm a Coke guy when it comes to drinking colas. But this is Chicago. We have to go back to the Blues Brothers, to SNL, which also the Blues Brothers, I think, and which takes us to Billy Goat Tavern, which takes us to Pepsi. So it's got to be Pepsi Colas.
Yeah, okay, you're right. I don't hate that. But he is, as you said, 31 AAA at bats. I mean, there's a reason it takes guys a while to get to the bigs. And it's not like football. It's not like basketball where you can be right out of school and go right into a starting lineup. It almost never works that way. Sure, you get the occasional Bryce Harper or Juan Soto or Julio Rodriguez in the Mariners right now. But as a general rule, it takes a lot of time in minor league baseball to get major league ready. 31 at-bats at AAA, you're not going to be there yet. I have a lot of hope for Oscar Colas in the future. I do think he's a potential great player. He's kind of the one guy in our farm system I'm truly excited about. But he's not going to be major league ready on day one. And so who's going to be in the outfield on opening day? Who's in the outfield?
Leary.
And that's the thing. It's going to be Leori. It's going to be Leori and Gavin Sheets. I mean, your season's already over. Your season is already over if that's your major league outfield on opening day. And if that's, here's what I'll say, if that's your major league outfield on opening day and it's not because of injuries, your season is over. It is. That is absolutely pathetic. This is our window, and we are not, granted, the outfielders who are available are not super exciting outside of Aaron Judge,
No,
who has returned to the Yankees.
well, and Nimmo, but we weren't going to be in the market for Nimmo. So
Absolutely. But what we're asking for is just guys who can go out there and catch the ball and play Major League Baseball every day. They are not even sort of seeking that. We are going to end up, we were joking with the guys, we're going to end up getting Joey Gallo on like a 1-year, $70 million deal because we will have slept on everyone else. And Gallo, who is, in my opinion, really terrible. He is Adam LaRoche slash Nomar Mazara slash.
he actually defensively he's okay.
He's okay, but then you got to put in a guy who's going to strike out 700 times into the middle of your order. That doesn't get me very excited. I get why we let Abreu go. It made sense to let Abreu go. I know a lot of people think the White Sox made a mistake letting him go. I don't think they did. He's my age. I'm not giving him a 3-year contract. I'm surprised Houston did, but I think Jose made the right call. He's going to win a World Series next year. Good for him. I think moving Vaughn to first is the correct move. I think he might actually just become a better player all around if he gets to play a position that he should be playing. I think he'll get a lot better at first base, and I think he'll be more confident at the plate. That is not something we dream up. Guys do hit better when they're confidently in the field as well. But left field, who? Right field, who? There is no one. Second base, who? I mean, this is a joke.
Gene Segura is still out there, but I haven't heard. And you talk about the rumors. There are no rumors about the White Sox have been talking to Gene Segura's people. Yeah, I think the 4 shortstops have to go before Segura probably. So we got
for sure
2 more of those. But I don't know who besides Segura. The one really good trade, because we're going to do trades and free agents, right? I mean, that's on. We're going to do trade because we can't spend any money. Forget, they have 15 million come off the books on Dallas Keuchel alone.
Yeah. We should have been in the conversation for the 4 shortstops. I know that people think that's crazy, and that's because the White Sox have programmed us like a cult to think that that's crazy. We are a major market team in our championship window, and we aren't in the conversation for the best free agents. What does that tell you?
And we've got a shortstop who is a very good hitter for a shortstop, but defensively adequate.
And would potentially be a stellar second baseman.
And exactly. Would be a great second base. Can you imagine a combination of, say, Dansby Swanson and Tim Anderson up the middle? Whoa.
Trey Turner and Tim Anderson, Carlos Correa and Tim. I hate Carlos Correa. I'd still like to have him. I mean, it's crazy that we were not in the conversation. We should have been in the conversation for Aaron Judge. We would have been out of it quickly. But when you are a contender who is claiming you're trying to win a World Series, you sign big free agents. You spend money. And we spend money on terrible guys, Keuchel, but that money's gone now, Pollock. That money's gone now. We have money to spend, and we're still not going to spend it. What do? We give Clevenger a $12 million 1-year deal, which is fine if you're going to spend money elsewhere to give these pitchers some defense behind them. Because as of right now, whatever defense we would put out there is the worst in baseball again. I mean, there's no way around it based on what we have.
And and you talk about the second base position where we were solid defensively, except when Valeri was there. But when they let Harrison play, the big trade, we're going to trade instead of free agent. Well, the big primary one trade possibility was Colton Wong. He's gone now.
Gone.
Low from Tampa Bay. is another possibility, but you can't trade them, Liam Hendricks, or
No.
uh, even anybody in the $9-10 million range. You're not going to take anybody that's not a team control for the next 3 or 4 years at 700,000 kind of person. Uh, so Graveman's out of the question as well. Of course, nobody take Kelly off your hands anyway. But
Yeah, I was reading I think it was on MLB Trade Rumors talking about how, the White Sox bullpen's in good shape with Graveman, and Kelly can be a guy who can eat up innings for you. I'm like, who are you watching? When Joe Kelly's on the mound, he can't eat up 1/3 of an inning right now. The dude gets slammed within an out. So it's just absurd to think that Joe Kelly is a valuable player and or trade chip. It's delusional. We are almost out of time. Do you have anything else you'd like to touch on today?
well, we must say on the plus side, it is very, very early in the off season, and we've particularly in recent years, a lot of action doesn't even come around until late January or early February. But this season, it's been going pretty fast.
Very
Uh,
fast.
and once this, even if the White Sox refuse to spend any money, real money to you and me, it'd be astounding. But
Yeah.
in the baseball world, real money. Uh, if they're not going to and they have to trade, that really has to be ready to go. Because once, 2 or 3 players are off the board in each category in free agency, then it's down to trades. And a team that has very, very, very little to trade. Now, if they're going to trade Hendricks, Hendricks has to go to one of the big spending teams.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody else is spending $15 million on a reliever. 34, 35-year-old reliever.
Yeah.
Even a very, very fine. And boy, I really hope they don't trade him less for baseball. I love watching Liam Hendricks play baseball. We need
Absolutely.
guys. Yeah, Josh Harrison was the most fun guy to watch last year. He's gone. The most fun guy to watch offensively is Jose. He's gone. Most fun guy to watch pitching. Well, there were two. One of them was Cueto. He's gone. And the other one is Hendricks. He's gone. What are we watching?
Not to mention, he's your Roberto Clemente Award nominee. He is a guy who is
He's
put
an
himself in the community.
incredible human being.
If you get rid of Hendricks, you have just committed to just being a bunch of jerks who suck at baseball. I'm sorry. I said it. Go White Sox. That's all the time we have for this week. We'll see what news develops. We'll probably be back next week just to talk about, what the outlook is heading into 2023. And then we'll take a little break for the holidays. But be safe, be healthy, be happy. And we will catch you next time on Sharing Sox.